Hello, people. I put the time for this at. Well, I'm just going to begin because this is serious. So people can't go back and be the quality of fact treatment nature needed to make proper use of words like serious or the opposite simultaneously. Because the simultaneous is being and has been gotten over on. Where the simultaneous is being gotten over on and how it is being gotten over on through our own, every modern country. Before modern countries were formed, a semi ancient, hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, it is more probable and more practical, you know, to discern relative to topics in the news. It has relativity to them, which has been forced left out because of the roles with the identities individual grouped in together at all locations /s per the way per a method we missed, or they change our words and per the motivations missed. The news media, I am not a licensed journalist, but they have been attaching people to fake locations, fake words with others, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, with child defenders leaders still, with women roles with it originally and still, because they have roles with all sides in civil cases and in criminal cases, and the identities there with this method. There are ways of people saying and acting at locations where consciously used remotely are time treatments at interbranch locations where they have been fabricating audio video into databases since founding. One of the ways they got away with this was pretending to be legitimately with the other countries who share roles with their families, and our families share people on off their campuses. But they have this criminally foreign influence, these roles. Tactically, delusions raw. So there are means. We know if you use actual honesty, there are means that people pretend they can't discern, but there are means to bring things before courts and have lawyers also have been planting evidences at locations in cases that have nothing to do with themselves. And the exceptions too. They value the difference to get over on the simultaneous. There is an identity of hyperrelativity. There is an additional one as a breaching method, as a singular breaching method. That was the summary value of the laws. And that's important because a value is about the discernment of identity science /s. But see, people want to debate the sciences if they're abridged or not as use while using premises, qualities of fact treatment nature, aspects of fact treatment nature that are tactically, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw at the same time. The debates through administrations, the Republicans and Democrats, they have roles with conceptions of the value of voting, the value of how to make resolutions where there are disputes. They have roles that used originally and still to screen the breaching method. Uses of all formal identities of the law, of their qualities of aspects of fact treatment nature itself. See criminal insidiousness. See black pupils, whites of eyes. Period. So they use a method where on and off campuses, kids from other classrooms and with the intelligence community foreign and domestic, from off campuses. They have been influencing uses of, when not that, private databases. And the same names have simultaneously recorded. This is inseparable if you want to get the right outcome. You have to understand simultaneously there are names mixed with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones originally instilled. One of the ways they got away with it is because of how they have identity applied, and with exceptions and exception nature already having been denied what actually nature was demonstrating with it. All sides in criminal and civil cases, and with lawyers, and with their identities at the various natures of courts, and or their family members, and or their neighbors. See, this feeds people speaking things to others and then seeing things timed where everyone lied right before they came there, because they're making people self-value, then they repeat, and investigators are used remotely. Their campuses, all ages and natures of campuses are used remotely. Hartford Hospital has roles. That's a campus. No, excuse me. I should have gone camper. To what? I don't know. Hartford Hospital has roles with other hospitals throughout the country, with what our founders left us to demonstrate. Roles can't be had with, and ourselves defended from what they had to leave entrenched with slavery, north and south, from before our founding parents were born, before the founders of Russia's founders were born, before the founders of Ukraine were born. Already, a breaching method had forced modern countries, semi-ancient countries, to self-value themselves through defenses of themselves, regardless, to self-value themselves as systems, tactical ulterior from how we are individual, grouped, and species body of volume. And with the hyper simultaneous, it is an identity that will not entertain systems other. The ancients couldn't believe we would forget how to cause evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. And this is what revealed the republic for which we stand, and its roles with exception nature, consciously, because a little bit of the identity of every country, of every name, is in other people, because the simultaneous can only make more of itself that way. Can only give us a little bit more temporary value one way, while it gives another part of itself a little more value another way, and then equality diffusion is increasingly here simultaneously. We have an extent of complete possession over all three parts of it. We have an inherent still, like, for example, before we have an act, let alone a predicate act. See, we have whole predicate acts methods that are formal stewards, and that all exception nature tied to them, like private tied to them, like prisons, like medical campuses, those databases. They have been putting fake audio and video into those databases also preemptively, relative to where and to how and to why. You have to understand the breaching method singular /s. The plural part, the S part, is that which was only capable of being per the laws of colonization, per what was to it, using that itself, using individually grouped and together the foundation of modern nation suits and ties and counters to it. In Native American dress, which is also counted, but it also comes with hyper additional cipher / decipher. It's explained to us, but not completely. We know one of the things that completes it is a breaching method was present. It was it was use of the laws individually grouped in together, designed to measure and maintain remote uses of people from abroad through the people having that done against themselves. This breaching method knew that people would speak for the sciences, would share an identity. There is an identity of relativity / hyperrelativity. We have and have had black pupils and whites of ice to answer our questions. What caused slavery? A breaching method caused slavery. That forcing us to entertain people, the formal stewards and other juxtaposed, pretending that we are using theory when we are not. The only reason they got away with this is per a trick. Even they recorded themselves online, and they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, all formal identities of law. Forgiveness is not to blame them. Forgiveness is to discern the breaching method. See, the courts have been pretending they taught to, because there were a certain type of, everyone came through campuses that were left abridged. Everyone came through database relationships since before computers. Left abridged function, tool, at other locations, not just those locations, and the difference of that. So note how the difference between black and white, as it is explained by nature, from how those countries individually grouped in together, including black and white, themed, colluded, blaming other things, other self-valuing roles, pretending with passions and emotions they could speak for the law, pretending passions and emotions that it's opinions. If someone from the suburbs or from a rural or someone from the New York City itself. New York City, not just because the World Trade Center is there. We are now grouped tactically ulterior from how we are grouped by nature, which answers our questions. Why male, female, species, body at the same time? Individual grouped, locations, areas, ages, sexes, other, as employments are now and have been tactical ulterior from those, or from how and why we have hyper additional employments and roles with value systems. See, values has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously, which is the identity of hyper simultaneous is distinct. The sequence nature / simultaneous nature as the only one that can be a semi-nature that is positive to itself also as a complete system, because not all of its system is here. This is demonstrated by the value of truth before the order of the finite now. The Republic left abridged from semi-ancient times. And the proofs of this require people to be allowed to use that which is hyper-evidential. So if we have black pupils and whites of eyes, which we do, the second someone leaves out the breaching methods roles with what forced that before our founders were born to effectively, knowingly, to have what is manifest as New York City now as a torture / slavery method, sickly, distinctly against everyone, including our founders, every modern nation. Huge. So we have means. Just admitting this enables, and then we'll see. There's difference between I give up all my programming ideas because people are too stupid. Because you guys want to debate who's stupid, what's not stupid, using quality of fact sheet nature, aspects of fact sheet nature, and nature itself that can't defend itself as styles of logic and afford short words used properly. So when someone says Connecticut interbranch switch names, forge names, falsified police reports, then stack more falsified police reports, so you don't know which one to respond to because there's no writing with each and they switch the names, attach confessions to that. The breaching method uses confessions distinctly from the church, but also non-distinctly. The church, the Bible knew that all, and the Quran were written with consciousness that all identity ground locations would remain self-valued roles and uses of the sciences being and having been abridged at all locations. So this is relative. In other words, there is one breaching method that everyone has roles with, and or they change your words, and they fake them, and they have been putting fake words into databases and through ourselves. So we have arrays, and we have the phenomenon of peers. Or people that appear to be peers because they're in another class, even if they're on our grade, we don't even see them ever around campuses. They even consciously make singular. I only saw on a campus in Weathersfield one time Justin Levinsky's real fast. And that was his confirmation of all kind of confessions he made off campus, revolved with sequence shifts, also pretend I was in locations I never was, where he has roles with foreign and domestic military and private with the interbranch, on off campuses and between campuses, with people individually grouped and together, roles predicate acts on my street from other locations. And then this is also where they pretend people's motivations, where they use others' names, consciously, criminally. That's recorded too. I told you all sides of civil and criminal cases, they've been planting fake things, boxings. They've been switching names. They've been fabricating transcripts with the phone, wire crime methods with the Weathersfield police, with the state police, with people tied to writing forensics when I was a kid and now as an adult. Wire crime, mail crime roles with them. Other methods and natures of predicate acts. There are names on off the state corrections offices that are roles through time with predicate acts, planting evidences on my street. Criminally foreign influence, roles, tactically delusions wrought. They have the military, foreign, and domestic involved with the World Trade Center with those names on off those spots. That's right on those. They have roles with the town lines. They have roles with the identity of the police. They on a mass scale in every modern country, where and how you need to show. The police have been name of the police have been used. Now they pretend people act the police. They bring up this is a picture of the president speaking. They're using that against ourselves too. They have been roles with civil and criminal cases with all sides of it, and their identities at the courts since they were kids involved with predicate acts, consciously pretending it's personal when we mention it. So they could consciously lie about how we felt about others growing up. So they can consciously have people pretending. They make people say, "Oh, I'm not going to be about getting violence." They have violence. They have violence. There's going to be more violence with the kids and with next to their houses, next to parks. They've been planting evidences there. They have threats that are credible involved with it. Same people pretending to be against it, because you're going to see other recorded than is pretended recorded. I am not a licensed journalist. They have their family member. They have everyone. See, they attach everyone to fake words with others, and that's sustained at each. This is a vertically and horizontally connected between campuses that have unconnected, even private and public campuses, even fire campuses, even medical campuses, and increasingly the spots next to it relative to uses by the breaching method of differentially criminally foreign influence. Not wanting to be, but increasingly exceptions were made and are made. So increasingly self-valued. And that is being and has been used remotely for what everyone missed. Millwoods Park and other parks in Wethersfield, like next to the community center, has names that film fake things, as their roles with federal crimes, child abuses, identity theft, fraud, slanders, which is one of the things. Again, all sides and the victims and the courts in cases have been planting federal evidence as crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders together. Now, these are the ones with interbranch switching names, fabricating emails, fabricating mail, attaching me and others and everyone around me increasingly since I was a kid with names connected for them at every campus I went to. Roles with predicate acts on my street, with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants, various natures of federal criminals, and ones further associated with them and their family members. Also, criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets near me. And people tied to a Joshua Stryker and a Joshua Julian, involved with a principal child abuser with more then and now. There are medical families. There's family with the name Leahy that pretended conversations with me. I never had a conversation with them in my life. There's one of them put a pad in front of me. I only know his name is Brendan Leahy because he was brought up in confessions to me by others. So this is one of the ways the courts too. There are courts that have been speaking fake things in the records with a whole bunch of people tied to the Leahy family, and a Brian Silver, a whole bunch of people on Connecticut District Court, on and off Fox Connecticut News, and buildings next to them involved with predicate acts, also with child offenders, even sexual, medical, police forms, and courts at the same time. Prepare your mind. They have the teachers and they have each of the sciences. Now, they have been preventing people calm means to defend themselves from people involved with criminal enterprises from the youngest ages and uses of them that everyone missed, but the breaching method didn't. And where our own didn't, that is used remotely too. Because before there was sophistication, this was hyper sophistication here. That's one of the things that is hyper evidentially recorded, where and how the breaching method was left out every time, stays left out every time they bring up how slavery existed. How they leave out the slavery of our founders who had to counter extort the other founders, who had to leave slavery entrenched north and south. They only had means to temporarily counter extort the other founders. Then the crazy slavery meant against everyone was so crazy, those founders had to thank God that they could have a chance of survival through the revolution, of survival, not of backing the Constitution on a bridge. They used to have rules with slavery north and south. Fear! It is righteous here. They describe people's passions and emotions dishonestly because they cannot afford discern what emotions are about. The simultaneous / hyper simultaneous, a quality of fact-driven nature that reveals evolution's means, what to do regarding any question, what to do in Ukraine. Everyone agrees mass farming was forced by the breaching method to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Before that, they tactically denatured the suburbs, made the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, self-valued roles with and as criminal insidiousness natures of positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Fear! I'll show you how the means appear. Boxing, species coach appears. So instead of having military operations where they spend all these money and resources, lock us further negative value nature progression, tactical terror from Earth or special differences, course, with the variable, the constant, here was programmed, will appear, other than appears to you as now. So, worse than mission creep, they have no means to defend, to counter World War I or two things as rules. They have sick rules with the mental health delusions, with those databases no one's looking into. They're putting fake things in there, even preemptively. Preemptively, because they have only 3 branches of government, they use remotely too. Forgiveness is not to blame someone with an interpretation of the law when it's too late and has collusions too. Because those locations, since before witch trials, our founders left us to demonstrate and understand why and how George Washington had to come to Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Had to counter-extort, temporary, but only the means, the people involved with slavery, North and South, which is everyone, in other words. And then they knew the breaching method would force everyone, they had to, thank God, and they had to make up narratives. These are fact-cheaping nature-oriented possession of the human fact-cheaping nature. So it has the mean, but there is that identity that shows us its conjunction as itself to all things. That can't be fake because it comes with 2 more. So the value of truth before the order of the finite is increasingly valued to understand that which was already being and is still being sustained against Native Americans. Sickly distinctly from when our parents were born into the same slavery method against everyone, sickly distinctly. And when I say our founders, I mean those founders who had to counter-extort to other founders and hide their actual motivations while not hiding them. See the Constitution Unabridged. See Marbury versus Madison. And do not leave out simultaneously seeing how they didn't have free speech. They had qualities, aspects, and nature of fact-cheaping nature that were forced by the breaching method that was a method that uses what people are going to say relative to things that it caused and increasingly causes to be like January 6th. Its roles with both sides of the political parties used as that tool, fact-cheaping nature, where they have people want to debate about the value of voting, pretending passions and emotions. They can't defend themselves and afford discern what is actually capable of being discerned, what is actually being and having been recorded. So on and off the World Trade Center attack location and the locations next to it, there are people with the name Scalora involved with various natures of doctors, including ones with badges, and child offenders, sexual and medical, per police. Now, these are people that did that with those confessions because then it makes it look like I knew them. They got locked since they were a kid. And with the investigations, the investigators and locations tied to them since, where they do little trick things when they say things. And that's how they try to investigate things while asking people directly. And the exceptions, too. They exploit that, too. So next to CCSU campus in New Britain and one on there's a CCSU on Franklin Avenue in Hartford. The south end of Hartford has a whole bunch of police forms and people with all the departments at the campuses, all the natures of campus, the databases. They have the connections with them through time and uses of that recorded. So these are the people leading up to the World Trade Center as our side with a whole bunch of other countries, as people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones too, since they were kids. But it's not about them. It's about the acts involved, because it's a bit getting to the not leaving out the full foreign. It's a whole bunch of different simultaneously exploited foreign influences over the people that campuses I went to that I didn't even have classes with. And the exception, the difference of that is also lied about, where and how there are increasing means to discern distinct identities of simultaneous, distinct identities of sequence nature slash simultaneous nature being demonstrated to us by nature and as nature also in the other sequence simultaneously. We could discern the identity of the hyperrelativity, the identity of nature and of its natures, but we from within it, we can only it looks like its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that simultaneously only increasing. It is the value of three distinct identities of zero that are only increasing relative to where and to how the sciences share an identity. And its identity created matter by under, by to understand this you have to follow its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that only increasing again because value is nature slash nature is value and nature is value slash value is nature simultaneously. This is how it is discernible. This is how it is distinctly the identity of the truth before the order of the finite now, only increasing distinctly from the order of the finite now. Know how we could only grapple with the finite one way. Know how and what is active now. So those are three distinct identities of sequence slash simultaneous nature. And what is progressive? What was the value of New York City to the breaching method? That was only capable of being unfolding that way. And the damage control was only capable of being used to measure and maintain who was going to who was behind that our founders were really behind and that other countries' founders were really behind, which is to get the Constitution unabridged, which is the Constitution of each country. That's a definition by the dictionary Constitution. So chefs would use the word Constitution. You want to get to the right Constitution. So we have the right Constitution defined as that which is unabridged. We cannot define that properly unless we understand the difference. Nature wants us to understand. It wants us to understand how it simultaneously wants us to be bound, unity, and independence simultaneously. It wants us to follow its course. It is a simultaneous slash sequence nature. That is one of the things it is constantly, where and how it is simultaneously things variably. That comes with Earth's special difference, which makes what is variable equal to what is constant. When what is variable is coupled with what is a special difference. That could be ignored. We could be systems tactical. We could stay systems tactical terror from that. But Leith of Hadith is forced. To understand what a Leith of Hadith is about by the ancients is the same thing. Its identity of volume as the hypersimultaneous. Its identity of relationship to itself as the hypersimultaneous that is functional being hyper invisible but still discernible, and as the only increasing value of that. And one of the reasons it is important to understand how it is value as nature slash nature as value, and simultaneously nature as value such value as nature, the opposite sequence slash simultaneously. That's what we're observing when we observe honestly, properly, scientifically. How that which is true, actually, that can't be made up. In other words, even if the other was pretended, the value of that only increasingly is demonstrated to us by natures because it has it has two natures that, in other words, by its complete nature. In other words, Earth has a special difference. An identity stays positive onto all parts of itself, while it's staying positive and negative. Because it only wants and needs more positive that is also positive onto itself. Here, where Earth has a special difference, where consciousness can be shown, understanding. Even the bugs have understanding, have consciousness. See, so now we are systems tactical ulterior from its own that is positive onto itself. So Earth's special difference, our special difference, is forced away from here, least of IDs. So that becomes negative value nature progression to positive value nature progressions somewhere else. Look how delicate Earth's balance in zero gravity is, and how it's demonstrating us not to mess with it, but others, because only people are allowed to speak for it. People allowed to, but all truths used for lies. Oh, the other countries with the space race, the war, the satellites, the economic, everyone left out the breaching method. We have the means better than free to make all kind of space means out of nowhere. We have tactically denatured suburbs, let alone the cities. We have populations that have no homes. We can give them way better than they will get any other way, and as a means to fight. We're all going to fight for the way. If we fight one way, there's one way to fight that hurts not one, and it reveals evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. See, the pantheism is more probably demonstrably. We have to define it as that where and how it is an ism, it can't be defended. Pantheism comes with a nature of prayer, a method of prayer. That is a scientific method. It is a contemplation. That can only be done as an individual. See, but prayer and all the words, this is one of the things that we're supposed to figure out through cipher/decipher, that all modern religions are about. One thing they're about is the sciences became abridged, criminally foreign influenced. See, this breaching method knew that modern countries and semi-ancient countries would blame other things, others, ourselves, when nature would demonstrate the sciences are abridged, that the identity they share is not conjunction, and what is and was not conjunctive to their voices when they use passions and emotions too, which is critical here. Here, when black pupils, white survives, and other stands as yet to speak as guys. So that needs to blame on other things, others, ourselves. Its roles with entertaining, having entertained, what cannot be defended, like regarding all positive and negative treatments, all identity treatments, therefore name treatments. So we have means to monetize a training of the countries rather than have it cost. We have means to better than free use that temporary peace and leverage to do great things and to begin to appreciate the identity the seasons share. Also, very delicately, very strong at the same time. If we appreciate that, when we appreciate that with contemplation, see, this is not contemplation plotting or contemplation counter to it. This is why it needs our words like value. See, but now we can't entertain value. Use that value has a relativity to positive and negative the same way identity does, because identity is functional by being invisible, hyper invisible, but still discernible distinctly from what is invisible but still discernible, like the subject, like the predicate. Note how the science of English values the predicate as a distinct identity of a verb, as a main verb being used as a main verb, and as a distinct identity of relationship to itself that main verb has. And that's the value of it with our understanding. Now, with the law, value is a predicate act. A predicate act shows an identity of relationship to itself too, as criminal insidiousness. So the breaching method made a whole bunch of laws. They made a whole bunch of criminal insidiousness natures and opinions and convictions by the law. In the law's name, that was not the law's name. It was the name of criminal insidiousness. And that is, again, an identity of relationship to itself. That which is being obfuscated / hyper obfuscated. That which is the identity that both pseudo ratiocination / ratiocination share. See, but there are identities of truth that come with revelations. There is, in other words, there is slavery, so there was criminally foreign influences. There's criminal insidiousness, natures of positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, name treatments, location treatments, time treatments, values / value progression treatments. They were Jim Crow laws. They left out understanding the slavery method. So, in other words, the Jim Crow laws, there is criminal insidiousness nature effectively used to measure and maintain self-valued uses of it by the people that are only capable of allowed to defend it. We are all capable of it. We mandated law followed out here. See, the agencies have been changing what we say from their own locations into branch, and also through the thing differentially, because of how we have to understand how the simultaneous is gotten over, and the sequence. These are names with sequence shifts in the Ninth Circuit Court, as people involved with the predicate acts with the names on and off the World Trade Center. And that court is right next to it in Manhattan, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. These are also names from Connecticut, intercities, who had interstates, criminally foreign influence, intercountries, timed roles, all along routes, rules, uses of corners, criminally foreign influence, roles with collusions with names on off fire campuses, on off Weathersfield, the police department involved with wire crimes, fake conversations with kids stacked in their databases, tied to the people doing it on campuses, little predicate acts, method, tricks, like magic tricks, and then uses of that other locations, and vertical and horizontal confessions used by the breaching method distinctly from the church's uses of confessions because of the roles of all locations. Sense and sensibilities use Jane Austen's phrase. Fact shaping nature, quality, aspects in nature that can't defend themselves and afford used the short words, let alone the protraction of the short words of people who would use revelations properly. You know, forgiveness is because you don't leave out the breaching method. And the only way you can discern the breaching method is where and how it has been using those around us, has been attaching everyone around us to change communications with our fake communications with ourselves and change communications with ourselves. That creates problems. That creates context where people increasingly have to leave out details when they're communicating with the people around them, no matter who they are. And it values uses criminally foreign influence of descriptions of people's relationships. See, we have evidences, treatments, and cases already of all ages and natures. They can't defend themselves enough for discern what is hyper-evidentially actually recorded, having been. So they want and need to make descriptions of how my writing is a little bit counter-obfuscated in the description of my videos here, because they attach me and others to fake words. These are also, WFSB is in the process of confessing and leaking roles with the intelligence community with names next to their location, as well as those involved with the wire crime methods with their phones, not just the fake news predicate acts, not just fake news predicate acts. And not just that, because there's layers of criminal foreign influences. They have this breaching method uses country's self-valued group too, criminally foreign influence. Vaccines. Thank you.